It's the Astro Primer for July 24th through July 31st. Let's get talking about it. Oh, you're kidding. Oh, it was black for a second as it started. That frightened me for one moment. I'm actually literally seconds from being on time, maybe precisely on time for the first time ever, and it started off with black footage, and that was scary to me. But audio should be golden. Let's get going with the Astro Primer, and let me bring you to my iPad and the familiar screen of photo pills. Now audio, we'll get our audio in sync here in a minute, guys. If any audio is out of sync right now, as you have seen the last few Milky Way Wednesdays, we've been in and out of it, and I have to swap back and forth between two numbers, but let's roll. Small Aaron, easy to see that the lips aren't in sync, or maybe hard to see the lips aren't in sync, so let's talk about it. How do we figure out, guys, if the Milky Way Kathy Hanahan has just fainted. Someone call 911 in Chicago because Kathy Hanahan fainted from the heat wave. We are right now, she fainted because I was on time. We are right now looking at photo pills, and what is my favorite way of finding out if the Milky Way is in the way? The moon pill. Let me emphasize that again. Right here, yellow moon pill. And I'm set already for Perth, Australia. Let's start off with you guys, you awesome people in the Southern Hemisphere. I can't get over the amazement, and I can't get over that some of you, and this is, I think, really cool, and I hope that some of you will join me on a Trailblazer workshop. What does that mean? Some of you might be joining me in the Southern Hemisphere next August in New Zealand. But let's not talk about that right now. So in Perth, Australia, you're setting yourself up for Milky Way right now, and it's Thursday, technically at 9 a.m. on July 25th, and you're thinking, you know what? When I'm done with this work, I want to go out. What do I do? What do I do? Well, here's the thing that you can do. Look on the moon pill and check it out and see how it looks after sunset. And after sunset, we immediately see the graphic showing that the galactic center visibility is going to begin at 7 p.m. Perth time. So at 7 p.m. in their winter, it's dark enough that you're starting to see the Milky Way. How does it go? Where's the moon? I'm not seeing anything except a moon set on 11:57. I see that morning the moon rose at 12:11. Let's see what happens on not Thursday morning, but Friday morning. Let's go over to Friday morning, and it's 1:07. So looking at this opportunity, you're going to experience a galactic core visibility from 7 o'clock at night until the morning at 1:07 a.m. when the moon starts getting in the way. Will you see a Milky Way? Yes, but what's going to happen is that's going to start being in the way, and sadly, in my personal opinion, knowing a little bit more about the Southern Hemisphere and thinking more about if I was to capture there, what would I want? I realize that those hours can be fruitless unless you're okay with having a zero foreground in your shot. When you're looking almost straight up at a Milky Way that is at high as 54 degrees elevated in the sky, you're not going to capture it with the foreground subject. You're just going to capture it to capture it. And it's actually pretty clear at zenith like that. That's amazingly clear when you look at the core up there. But it's not as interesting as a foreground, so you wait for that Milky Way to go from here and then start setting. And right here at 5:13 a.m., the galactic center visibility ends because it has set. It's actually setting horizontal to the foreground and the horizon and then setting. And so your best opportunity is that panel that's happening right there before set, and the moon has already risen. So let's talk about the reality that your pano Milky Way and foreground Milky Way is going to be blocked by the moon. That Milky Way most likely hasn't moved enough, and it's been blocked by the moon, but every night gets better. So going from the 25th on, we're looking at 3:07 the moon has risen. At 4:09 the moon has risen, and all the way until Tuesday, July 30th, the Milky Way is finally not being blocked. Finally not being blocked by the moon at all. The moon finally rises after the core is set, and so you have the entire night talking about Monday night, July 29th, you go out at 7:03, you'll see the Milky Way core all the way until 4:57 a.m., and that moon is out of your way. So Southern Hemispheres, you guys, you awesome Milky Way photographers down there, you guys have an opportunity, your best opportunity starting really on the weekend, and then Monday night is the absolute clearest with complete freedom from no moon whatsoever, and that is obviously continuing on through our Milky Way Wednesday next week. So let's go to us far less fortunate not to have so long of a nighttime and a winter time, and also having a heat wave right now everywhere. Let's look at the northern hemisphere. I'll just auto update it for myself right here in American Fork. And let's back up. Let's back up to Wednesday. So we're looking at, let's see, I want to go out tonight after Milky Way Wednesday. Well, 5:17, it's starting to become visible. The moon has risen, though. It's risen at 2:38 p.m., and it's not setting. This morning it set at 2:35 a.m., so Thursday morning it's going to set at 3:34. So realistically, my opportunity is after that. And so when I look at this, it's interesting. It doesn't even show. Oh, wait, let's see. I think my settings are not adjusting. Auto detect. I was still in Perth time. That's why it was so unique the way that the Milky Way core was. Let's look back at that again. Okay, Wednesday night, and yeah, moon isn't rising until 12:38. Okay, that seems more accurate. That is more accurate. So Thursday morning, when you're looking at going out tonight, northern hemispheres, depending on where you are locally, Europe, Japan, myself, we're all kind of at the same longitude. Now I'm saying it wrong. Longitudes this way, latitudes this way. At a higher latitude, you're going to have a different time. Lower latitude of a different time. So just look at this time based on roughly the 40-degree mark we're sitting at right now. And that moon is going to rise on us around 1 tomorrow night. And it rises on us every night a little bit later, just like in the southern hemisphere, obviously. It rises a little bit later. And our first perfectly open opportunity is going to be at Monday night as well, where it rises an hour after, or half an hour, 40 minutes after that visibility ended anyway. So let's look at this. Our northern hemisphere, we have a 45-degree to a vertical Milky Way. So you see the Milky Way more like this, go to this as you go through the night. Let me lower my hand from here to here. And so you have all night long, just depending on how your composition's set up, to have your Milky Way look fine. It's going to look like a 45-degree vertical Milky Way in every shot, practically. So you just build your composition around that, and you have your fine opportunities all the way starting with tonight, because you have the moon rising on you at 1. You could go out right away at 10:43 and have visibility of the Milky Way perfect until the moon rises at my time, 1:05 a.m. So we have a great night every night with plenty of opportunity. A moon window opportunity is brilliant for all of us in the northern hemisphere. But that's enough of the Astro Primer. Let's get going with Milky Way Wednesday and hang out with you guys. That's the Astro Primer for July 24th through July 31st, 2019. And welcome in, everybody. Hey guys, thanks for joining me live. You guys, let me remind you real quick that you guys joining me live right now, as you can see in the cam chat right there, you guys joining me live right now are experiencing this segment of Milky Way Wednesday. And if you were to watch a replay of this in the future, this will be cut out. Maybe my quick opener saying, hey, welcome into Milky Way Wednesday will be included, but then it cuts to the highlights of the rest of the clips. And tonight's course of the week, it's going to be long. It's going to be long. So those of you who want to learn a little bit at the beginning, hang out with me for the next 20 minutes, and then it's going to get longer as we go into the very specific way of taking your lower half and your upper half exposures and blending them together in Photoshop. I'm going to show you my simple, not easy, but not complex way of doing it. And it's one option that you can use to do it. So right here, guys, we're hanging out and we're talking. I can see your chat. Let me know. I know that Kathy already pointed out that this is out of sync. So let's see how it is right now. I want 2 votes at least on whether it's in sync or out of sync, and I'll go with your guys' call. We're hanging out at this point. Right now, this live, it's you and me. Thanks for joining me. In fact, how many are here with us tonight? 21. Awesome. Awesome. So we have, oh, my eye, it's really warm. And underneath the light, it's really warm today. And so I had to clear my eye like I'm swimming. But here we are with 21 of you hanging out. Thanks, guys. I know the last 2 weeks we haven't been able. So one vote from Stanley says it's not synced. Let's see who else is typing right now saying its audio is out of sync or not. Most likely, I mean, one vote from Stanley is enough for me. But let's see if he's experiencing something on his own side. Because sometimes you guys can refresh and everything will go in sync differently. So let's get one more vote and then I will try that swap between the 2 times that I have to swap. So... I know it's only a second away. Hey, close but not quite in sync from Steve. Okay, thanks, Steve. So let's see. Let's try this separate number. Right now I'm off on a 24/1800 like I did last time. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No one does it that way, but hey, am I more in sync? Is it working out? Close. OS, Derek says. Oos, it's out of sync. So we're looking at that. Let's see if that has worked out. I got to give you guys 20 seconds just to catch up with what's going on right now. So in that meantime, I'm going to think about things and not talk to you. Okay, that would be bad for a show. I'm not going to sit here and do nothing, but I am talking gibberish. I am just rambling because right now this is outside of the show. Let me double check I have everything I want on here. I saw a message come through. What is it? Good. On point. Yes. Okay. Actually, with my screen like this, I'm being lit. So here we are. Let's... Oh, where'd everything go? Okay, I think the Photoshop is opened up on top of my window. That's what it was. Okay, cool. Let me just make this a full screen of its own. That way I've got it. Okay, welcome in. Welcome in, everybody. Hey. Oh, whoops. I don't want to click that again. Welcome back into Milky Way Wednesday. I just returned home from a trip to Italy. Now, I'll jump in with those of us who are here live with me right now. We've got Stanley, Derek, Kathy, and Steve. Those are the ones, and Mo, who has been with us so far, live chatting it up. And I'm glad to have you guys hang out, even though I haven't been here for a couple of weeks. I've been gone. I've been out of country. Check this out. Really awesome NASA shirt, which is very fitting for a guy who spent a week and 2 or 3 days in Italy, learning all about Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, and they're a battle between each other. I'm convinced that Leonardo da Vinci ended Michelangelo's life. So 2020 Nightscape Canab, Steve Sagnotti's joining us. Yes, you're going to be there. Fantastic. So in the beginning of Milky Way Wednesday, I hang out and chat with those who are with me live and also go through some of the beginning openers and fix the audio. Echoes out of sync every time. It kind of toggles on and off. And so I am now on the highlight. So thanks for watching the highlight replay over on our YouTube channel. I'm Aaron King with Photog Adventures, and tonight we are going to talk about panoramas at well, it actually doesn't have to be panorama. It could be simply that you're capturing your foreground in a single image separate from the exposure of your actual sky shot. Let me show you what I mean in short over here on my screen, my iPad. Hey Ray, how's it going? Let's see, IMAX screen. There we go. Okay, so if you guys will bear with me as I go back to a previous image, you're gonna see this one. And at Island in the Sky, you see those 2 dots. What basically I'm talking about is right here, I've captured the sky at a certain setting, but then I needed to see my foreground. I couldn't light paint. There was nothing I could do about light painting this terrain. Absolutely I can light this section right here. But that's not really possible for where I really wanted to light paint, which was this really cool feature down below. So instead of having that be this dark shadow, I did a longer exposure for the lower half of my panorama. Now, it doesn't have to be a panorama. It could be a single shot where your lower half is foreground, and that's long exposure for it. In this case, this was 1 minute. And then my sky was 8 seconds. Did I change my f-stop? No, f-stop is the same. I was sitting there at f2 on both of these. And did I change anything else on my ISO? In this case, no. Which is why I wanted to test this out at Crater Lake. Let's just finish the 8,000, Aaron. So I wanted to test this situation. I wanted to look at it and go, okay, it went very well here at Island in the Sky. I had the same white balance up top of 3800 that I captured with as I did down below, but they're raw and they both got adjusted to about 4200. I can probably check in Lightroom here in a second to see exactly where it ended up. So they're similarly white balanced. The exposure is just longer. That's the only difference, really. Same lens, same moment, minutes later, seconds later. Honestly, I captured my foreground at a minute a piece. So I wanted to apply this to Crater Lake. And you know what? I think I'm going to leave that because why not? I wanted to apply that to Crater Lake. Here in this image, as you can see, it's a 12-image panorama. I had a Crater Lake rim that is pretty much an afterthought. And you'll hear me talk about that in this video here in a second. Hey, Ray says, good, the barn is a go. Oh my gosh, okay. Between you and me, Ray, let's have a secret meeting that barn is an awesome scenario. Okay, cool. Ray, I met him out at Crater Lake. He was out here with me and Sid that night on the 4th night that I was out there. And actually has a very cool barn in the area that needed permission from the landowner to get on the property to capture a Milky Way. And so he's got his spring set up. So that's awesome, Ray. Thanks for joining me, man, for this. When I first said hi to you, Ray, I didn't put together that you're the same Ray from the workshop. I apologize for that. But now back to my canoe that I've drawn over my Crater Lake. This can be an afterthought. You want the Milky Way panorama, and so much of Crater Lake becomes an afterthought of the rim. And at this time, I captured it with vertical panoramas like this. I didn't use 2 rows. It isn't a 2-row panorama. It's a simple 1-row vertical shot, and in this case, 24 millimeter. That is just 12 images going across. I was able to have everything on here. But this year, I wanted to get it featured the way that I featured the foreground here at Island in the Sky. How could I do that? So let's open up real quick with a video where I talk about this scenario, and you can see me, not Ray. Unfortunately, I don't have Ray in the shot here, but you'll see other guys.
Hey guys, welcome back to Photog Adventures. I'm Aaron King, and tonight we are doing a complete rework of my Crater Lake panorama.
Hope that music.
The night is young when we begin. One breath, the air is on my skin.
So out at Crater Lake the last 2 nights, you can see the view from up here. Let me tilt this back. You can see how clear the night sky is and how I'm going to be in the shadows of the light up here. So I'm going to film right now and let you guys know the few things that we're trying to accomplish tonight. When you come to a location multiple nights, you start to, oh, there's Jupiter right there. It's already showing up. When you initially get out here, you're trying to capture that panorama as fast as you can in the light that you got and the chance that you have before that panel arches up too high. So then you capture it for the Milky Way sky, but the rim of the crater is a bit of an afterthought. So to capture that caldera, that really awesome rim, I've tried longer exposures to no real success in the past. After my success at Island in the Sky, at that being 1 minute long exposure and doing a panorama and then stitching it together with my sky, I know that I want to absolutely do a panorama stitch with a very long exposure crater, caldera, and then a regular exposure sky. And that's my goal tonight, but I'm gonna try it in 2 different ways. Well, 3 technically. First way, if I'm out here at night, I'm setting up my focus for the stars. I'm focusing for the stars. I got myself an infinity. My foreground, it is what it is, right? I usually have things far enough in the distance that it works out, and so I don't have to feel too bad that my shot ended up being not perfect sharpness. In fact, at Island in the Sky, I don't even really notice that it's not perfect sharpness. Maybe some of you have, but the foreground actually looks pretty dang sharp for just hyperfocal distance. That stuff that really is only about 8 feet in front of me, 12 feet away. So at this 24 millimeter Rokinon, infinity is safe enough for something that's in front of me typically, let alone the entire caldera in front. So I would capture at night and focus for the stars, and then use that focus for the foreground and do 1 minute long exposures. Well, I'm out here at sunset, and I have blue hour right now. I just captured an interesting blue hour shot of the caldera where I had focused on the caldera in the daylight. I could see that my Rokinon was in focus, and I liked it and shot it. So I'm leaving that focus right there. When it's time for my Milky Way, I am going to take that shot and capture my foreground first at long exposures using the focus that I got from the daylight. Then I'll actually focus for the stars and capture my panorama real fast. I'm gonna go ahead and do another shot of the ground, just doing long exposure again, my foreground again, the same way I just did it, but this time using my focus that I used for the stars and not the focus I got just now up there in blue hour. It's gonna be a little dark, but I'm gonna take you up there where I am by my camera.
Oh no. Okay. Hey, I forgot to turn my mic back on. You didn't lose audio, Mary Beth or Kathy. Everybody lost audio. So let's start again. That's the best part about this live, having highlights. So let's start this again. What I said, and I'll repeat everything, is, hey, welcome in, Rhonda. I'm glad that you're joining us. Rhonda and Kathy are actually joining me out in Faroe Islands, and that is going to be an awesome experience. In fact, we still have one more slot open if you want to be out there in September. Faroe Islands, it's 7 nights, 7 days in the Faroe Islands. You will come home with images you love. If you've been following Brendan's Facebook lately, he's finally started posting a ton of his images from there, and so he's got some awesome shots that I know Kathy has been made jealous of. But my audio is back. Yeah, Aaron, please stop talking. There's no sound. I hate how it's a 30-second delay, because then when I get going and there's no audio, you just flat out don't see it. So let's go over here to my iPad, and I'm going to talk about the 2 foreground options that I captured. So I mentioned 3 different versions, and I think the way I thought of a third version was this. I've already set up my focus for the specific terrain. I went and I zoomed in. In fact, let me just hit X on this. I zoomed in, and you can't see it coming through in this image, well, because it's a JPEG compressed, but I zoomed in right on that subject, and I was recognizing on Wizard Island. I'm like, okay, that is in focus. Yeah, that's in focus. I got this in a good focus. And so I set it up with my daytime light, and I focused on that foreground that I wanted to be in focus, and I double-checked what it looked like up here as well as there, and of course they were both at infinity enough that it was sharp as I really could make it with my handheld, no autofocus on the Rokinon lens. I had to do it manual, and so I was actually looking through my zoom and saying, okay, yep, just right. So then, as I was in focus during the daytime and captured this blue hour exposure, what I was going to do was, once it became nighttime, I was going to capture right away without changing the focus. The problem ended up being that when you're out here in Crater Lake, you usually have an hour while the Milky Way is low enough for a pano and it doesn't come out of your screen too much. You end up getting a scenario, if you wait too long, that the Milky Way has risen high enough, that arc of the Milky Way is high enough that you're looking kind of at this angle instead of across. You're shooting a pano above you almost. And we had that more this year than we've had in the past, because this Crater Lake experience ended up being the new moon ended up being towards the end of the month in June. They didn't open up for a week and a half before we got there, so it's not like we could have come earlier. But with the moon in the way, it's not as good. And so we had to wait for the moon to be in the right situation. Oh man, I can already see that I have a weird connection on my quick panels that I put together for you guys for this today, but we'll just ignore that glitch. I'll show you what I'm talking about real quick. See, I'm realizing that there's a weird stitch seam right here that didn't work out, but that's only because the water was being blown in the wind, and so this got lost. Lightroom got lost on this segment right here. They didn't know what to do, so they matched it up here with this when they should have matched this up with that. So anyway, back to my full screen. So we are trying to fight that timing of, okay, moon's away from you totally. The sun has gone down enough. It's full darkness, and now capture that panorama. You don't want to make sure you capture the panorama quick. And this month, the June month, we ended up with about 20 or so minutes before it started getting high. And I wanted to capture as low as possible. So instead of capturing a very, long exposure on my foreground at the same focus that I captured during this blue hour shot, I decided to bail on that one, quickly focus for Jupiter, get my sky shot now, get that out of the way, then do my foreground. So instead of having 3 options, I ended up with 2 foreground options, and the only difference would have been the focus, and that's just not that much of a test that we need to do right now. So looking back at these, let's look at the differences, other than my glitch right there, because look, the stitch was perfect at the blue hour shot because it didn't have as much difference going on as it did here. A minute-long exposure with the wind moving the water, it's no surprise that glitched out a little bit. And so looking at this, which is really too bad because I think my favorite, I'm going to ask you guys to give me a thought on your guys' favorite. So the settings, let's talk about that. This is 8,000 ISO. I did the same thing that I did over there in Island in the Sky. F2, and I captured it at 1 minute. Now my settings on this blue hour shot, what were they? Let me take a moment real quick, guys, and say that this episode is brought to you by MilkyWayPhotographers.com. That's our site. That's our website for Milky Way photographers, and Kurt Keyes and a bunch of authors that I don't want to start listing off names otherwise I'll forget some and show, that I don't respect or love them as much. And so I'm not going to name any more names. Just our managing editor is Kurt Keyes, working on MilkyWayPhotographers.com. And it's a place for all of you guys to join. And we've had an issue with logging in lately or registering. And I'm going to make sure I show you guys a way to get in and get past that. So over here, I wanted to take you guys to my Lightroom, and let's make these a little smaller and look at my blue hour images. So blue hour images settings. If you can see this well up here, it's 13 seconds that I captured it at. ISO 100. I had the lowest ISO I could. I wanted to keep this as crisp as I could. As you can see, with my Rokinon, this is what its sharpness is at this light and with this scenario, but that's pretty dang nice and focused. When you compare this with what I've had in the past, let me just pull out of this image and show you. When you compare these two to each other, check this out. Here's my Crater Lake pano, here's the foreground, and here's that blue hour shot. That's amazing. A lot more detail, a lot more information that I didn't have to play with in my other option. So, in fact, I'm going to go like that so that they're side by side. So then I'm thinking, I'm already saving my rim already with blue hour, so that's an awesome option. ISO 13 seconds. And let's pull back to the comparison again. I like seeing them on the iPad real quick. So I had a nice blue lake. I have a really, really blue sky that's casting a light and making all of this foreground look completely blue. The actual settings for my white balance on this is 6250. That's a daylight white balance. And yet it's still captured like this. And in the raw, I just kept it at 6250. I didn't make any changes here. You can see over up here, it shows, I'm looking at, 6500 Oh, am I quoting it wrong? Is it 6250, the other one? It must have been, my capture of this one was originally 6250, and then I changed it down to match the actual sky. So I'll talk about that here in a sec. Let's see, was this one 6250? Haha, that's it. That's the one. I have two versions of this, and I went with this 6250, but that means I could probably save. Actually, no, this one actually didn't have any issues with seaming. But this is 6250. Either way, even at that white balance, this area is so blue. So blue. If I wanted to adjust this white balance to fix that blue, you can't see it, or no, yeah, you can see this right here. I change this over, and now it starts to look more natural. And guess what numbers I'm at? I mean, if you can read that good. That's looking like more of the colors of Crater Lake, and it's all the way up to 12,000. So I have to double my white balance numbers to get it back to what it would look like to me as a normal white balance. So it's blue hour. You've got that consequence of dealing with the blue hour shot where you have this very blue cast, which could be brilliant in the end for my shot, because why would it look nice? Could look natural because it's a nighttime shot. That's a little bit more bluish. That's really impossible for you guys to read, but oh, you know what? I'll just do this. Brilliance of these devices. I'll just do that. Put on a white background. So this one could look more natural. Oh, let's go back to a pen. Could look more natural down here. Another benefit of this one down here is when you look in the background, let me go to Lightroom and show you. When you go in the background and look at these, the detail here, that's a lot of information. Let's compare it to the nighttime one. I'm going to make these even smaller so that I can get them up on the same screen. I'm going to go RA, and the reference photo will be this one. Now I got to drag and drop. Okay, YY. Let's just do YY. I guess if I'm in develop, it's YY. I want XY. I want XY Lightroom. XY. Okay, so now I have that XY. And go back to XY, please. You can see I've chosen maybe the pano. Okay, how about this? There you are. There's the one I want. Okay, now I'm going to check this one back to where I want it to be. And it's going to be the pano of the full blue hour. And I want to look at side by side the distant hills, because that might be where I get a better view. That might be where it starts showing up more crisply and in a way that I can choose between them and say, I'm going to get the best quality out of this one. So backing up, and let's go with this one. Okay, so now zooming in the same area on both sides, it's going to be a little different. Can I expect it to? Let's just pull out a little further so we'll have more view of the sky. I went the other direction. 1, 3. And 2, 1. 2, 1 going to show us. Yeah, they're so different in their positioning that I'm going to have to change them to 1, 2. Oh, I lost XY. I freaked it out. So looking at this side by side, the preview is looking like it's done loading. Okay, yeah, it is done loading. Already from my perspective here in my chair, you guys are going through a stream, so it's not as high quality, but you're probably seeing what I'm seeing right here. The preview's finished. Okay, that preview hadn't updated. It looks a lot better now. It's just still not the same. There's a lot of data here of the character of color right on these rocks that are completely muddied out right there. Let me try a view of 1, 3. No, other direction. I've got to pay attention to these ratios. Okay, so I'm not going to look at the same screen on the blue, but you can see here what you're seeing on this side is completely in more detail, much greater detail in the blue hour. So there's a win. There's a win for it. So if you were to look at these side by side, the win goes to more detail with the blue hour because I just have more light. There's more light to see it, even though it's at a long exposure, even though I am making sure I bring in tons of light as much as I possibly can. That 1 minute is susceptible to my movement, to wind movement, to my tripod's vibration. Maybe during that minute, I looked around and said something to someone else, and my feet picked up and stepped down, and I vibrated the tripod just a little bit. It could just be soft because of me, or the wind, or the fact that it's just not a lot of light, that it's gripping the most that it possibly can out of, and it's just nowhere near as detailed as it can be with a blue hour shot being just superior, completely superior. So then from the perspective of my own personal choice and your guys' choices, I can see your comments right here, and you can tell me right there what your vote would be. Which one of these would you prefer for your lower half of the image? You know, notwithstanding this crazy glitch that I can fix. Ignoring this little error, pretend like that didn't exist there. Which one would you choose? Well, one final difference that I want to point out that I think is going to put the vote in favor of my favorite choice here. If I look at this and I see the starry night above it, that a starry sky that I've set up and I've blended them together, which one would I like the most? Man, I just love seeing the star reflections. The star reflections. And it looks like, as I look over in the comments, Mary Beth actually said it herself. She said it herself already. I'll go to cam chat so you guys can see it. One thing you have to remember that I forget about with blue hour blends is the reflection of the stars. Lower ISO is always her vote when it comes to quality, and I agree with that. Lower ISO, higher quality, but man, missing out on these stars. When you think about my screen up here, let me pull up another window. If I can get this to come on screen, let me, 4 fingers up, that's what I'm doing wrong. I got this desktop that'll quickly show us that image. You know, I don't have a reflection of stars to worry about down here. So I could have chosen either one for the island in the sky because I don't miss out on that benefit that's happening in Crater Lake. Crater Lake is giving me star reflections. And you know what? The color, the character that it adds with these star reflections down here, I really do love. My own personal preference would be that I love that. I'm terrible at guessing these ratios. Let me do 1, 2, not 2, 1. There's the ratio I wanted. Blue water, reflected star water. Blue water, reflected star water. Yeah, lots more time in post. I can blend those star colors over the blue lines here. I mean, I'm going to have both layers that I can have behind it. I can bring in some elements from the layer behind that one and bring some stars out. And you know, I'd have my detail up here, but I wouldn't have my blue water. I'd have my star water. You know, I can do a different mask that includes 3 layers: starry reflection foreground, blue hour foreground, and the star sky. And I think, honestly, that's where I would go for an ultimate shot. That would be the case. I would keep all these cool stars and not lose them in the blue hour, but gain the background, gain the detail in the mountain back there, you know, that really cool rock that's there. It's just so obvious, the detail that's existing that doesn't exist in my long shot. So, all right, that was long enough going back and forth. I think we could have said a whole lot more, but I've spent plenty of your time talking about it right now, and I'm seeing votes from Rhonda and Mary Beth. Stanley says, you know, no blue allowed. Top cause. Top, because no blue allowed. Well, Stanley, you don't have to even choose it based on blue, because I could white balance the blue out by doubling the white balance color in the raw, and I can fix that, absolutely. It doesn't have to be blue. It just turned out blue when I kept it at daylight. And so if I look at some other chat messages, we got somewhere down the road, Terry saying, hey, it's Terry here. Finally caught you on one of these. I like the star reflections also. Vote for the star reflections. Yes, I agree. Of course I agree. You just agree with me. Yes, thank you for agreeing with me. Add the stars to the blue and you got it. Process it both ways, Bill Vincent says. So yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at these two options that I have, I am now going to take this into Photoshop and show you guys the quick way. It's not going to be a complete image. It's not going to finish complete. In fact, we're going to see some of the problems with these images right away. And, issues with stitching the blends together. I'm not going to solve those tonight. I just want to show you guys a quick idea of how I do that. But before I do that, I want to go back to MilkyWayPhotographers.com. And let's talk about this real quick. If you guys are going to register, you're a new registration here, you'll see the option of sign in and join. And you get the option to create an account right here. What's happening is if you use this option right now, it's glitching out and it's saying, we'll send you a password. But that doesn't work for some reason anymore. So we have to fix our link. And so this right here is a pop-up. But if you go to MilkyWayPhotographers.com, register, you're going to get this sign-up sheet. And this sign-up sheet is going to work. So if you see the blue and the green right here, then you have the correct sign-up sheet. So MilkyWayPhotographers.com/register is going to allow you in. And that's the problem that I'm having to link people to right now to solve. This sign in and join is just not working. This will not work. So this used to be replaced by this graphic, but there's an update coming for both of those plugins, and we just have to fix it with both of those updates. So they're hashtagging ban blue Milky Ways. Is Roger Clark in the audience? Because that's awesome. Because you actually should ban blue Milky Ways. Tonight's example, I should emphasize, is going to show you precisely what I've done and my artistic choices that I've made. And it's not going to be a representation of an accurate, true, 100% perfect Milky Way color. It's not the color of the sky and the color of the Milky Way that it's accurate. It is just simply my artistic choice, and so we'll go from there. I think that covers the Roger Clark disclaimer. So let's get going. Now, those of you, thank you guys for joining me who aren't going to hang around for this lengthy post-processing. I'm probably going to go for another 20 minutes doing this. If you're up for it, hang around. If you're not, thanks for joining me tonight on Milky Way Wednesday. I'll be here next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. I will not be out of town next Wednesday, so I'll see you guys there next Wednesday. So here we go. Let's go back to my IMAX screen. In order for me to blend the modes, and since we like the stars, we'll use the star one, but I'll bring both of them over. I think that would be fine. I'm going to select all the images that I want to blend. And just a quick comment on my night sky. Let me show you guys a problem that I ran into. First off, I had a night sky that looked like this. And I went across the top of the rim. I didn't want to get too much of it because I wanted to capture as much as I could of the top of the arch. As you can see, I mentioned earlier that arching Milky Way is going to be really high on your lens. And look at how high it ended up on my lens. That's one row tilted up 24 millimeter. And so that's really, I felt like that was too close. So I did another one where I went up a little bit higher. So you can see a little bit more headroom above it. Let's just compare them back and forth so you can see what I'm talking about. Just a little bit more headroom. I changed my angle enough, but when you look at this by itself, oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay, yeah, here's the one by itself. Here's first version, then the second version when I tilted up higher, but you look at how I was a little off. As I changed my angle on my ball head, I also changed my right and left, and so instead of a nice clean bottom and top being pretty level, they ended up having crazy up at this angle and came down to the far right side. So that's why it looked like this. So I took this pano, all the images from this pano, so all the blue ones right here, I took them, selected them, and then selected all the images from the next pano. So what is that, like 15, 16 images? This would be 10, and this is 20-something, 22 images. So I took all those 22 images of both of these panos and then stitched them together here. So Lightroom was awesome about taking 22 images and then filling the gaps where they are, which is why the version of this and this barely look any different on the bottom, but the top has a little bit of extra headroom. and it's because that's all of it stitched together. So that's my sky that I'm going to use. And here is my nighttime foreground and my daytime foreground. Now, one of these is one I didn't want to use. I'm just going to grab them both so that they're there. So I've selected all 4 of those images, and I'm going to bring them into Photoshop. Oh, no. Photoshop haters, or Photoshop worriers, I should call you. Don't worry, we're not doing anything in Photoshop that is challenging. As you follow me, you'll see that it's complicated to do, but the steps getting there are not complex, if that makes sense in your mind. So I have right-clicked on one of my selected 4 images, and I'm saying Edit in Photoshop. No, not this one. Go down. Open as layers in Photoshop. So now Lightroom is going to pull these over to Photoshop for me so that I can see all of these RAWs, these DNG files from my Canon camera, and I can process them right there on my computer here. For RAWs blending, I'm going to get rid of one of the layers right away once I choose which one of the foreground I want. But it's going to open those up for a moment. And while that does, I'm going to switch over here to this camera chat and welcome Kirk Keyes. Kirk, we were just talking about MilkyWayPhotographers.com, actually. And I don't know if you were here for it, but I'm going to mention it again so that you can pass this information along as well. But anybody who goes to MilkyWayPhotographers.com to join us, become a registered Milky Way photographer and get your achievements towards Master Milky Way Photographer. Milky Way, oh, I put Millie Ways. MilkyWayPhotographers.com, and you say, oh yeah, I want to sign in and join. You click on this, create an account, you're going to end up with this page, and this page will not work. So Kirk, if you have anyone who's having an issue registering, this is the issue. You can't use this pop-up anymore. The pop-up used to have the correct information in it, but now it's going back to this one. It's just a plug-in update. We got to fix that. So what we need to direct people to, instead of this pop-up, it needs to be MilkyWayPhotographers.com/register. Register, and it'll show you this page. If you see the green and the blue boxes here, then you know you're on the right one, and that will get you in. That's how you register. So I hope you guys will all join us at MilkyWayPhotographers.com. Let's see where Photoshop is right now. Sorry to spin you around. I am going to put you on the cam chat so you don't see all of my nonsense as I change windows. Where are we, Photoshop? Okay, reading camera raw still. Ooh, looks like it just finished. Awesome. So guys, like I said, I'm going to take another 20 minutes here to show you this quick version of post-processing this way. If you guys need to take off, no worries. Come back and watch it. These will be 2 separate videos. I'll have 2 separate highlights from this Milky Way Wednesday. D-Max, let me answer your question. Wish I could stick around, just got the notifications going on, heading out to shoot the night sky. Thanks a lot for doing these. Keep rocking. Thanks, D-Max, and get out there. I'd much rather have you out there with your camera than in here listening to me. Save me for tomorrow during work, and you'll be fine. So here we are on Photoshop, in Photoshop, and let's look at these 2 foregrounds. The difference. Oh, okay. So here's the difference in here. I have one that's fully a rectangle. See that full rectangle? And then one that is just the raw stitch panorama. No warping, no stretching to the corners have happened. So that's the issue that's happening here. Do I want to go with the one that's warped and flat or the other one? The reason why I even considered it is because this top of this peak and top of this peak is so close to the top there. But even when I stretched it, and I chose the stretched one, it still doesn't have any extra more breathing room because there's nothing to give it. So is this better or worse? I'm going to find that my stitch is going to be difficult either way. How? Let me just show you guys. Let me just emphasize this real quick. If you guys are using your camera and your position at your tripod, you have your camera in vertical orientation and you capture your sky. If you tilt down and just capture your ground right away, it's going to be very, very easy to stitch because everything is from the exact same position. Everything is consistent. Everything is similar. What's happening here is that I'm in blue hour. I shot my ground. Then I sat around for 2 hours. It was 9:20 something to 11:40. And so the difference of 2 hours meant my tripod could have gotten moved. I turned my camera for sure towards Jupiter, got my focus on Jupiter, and then did my night sky. So the exact layout of my panorama on the sky versus, layout meaning, my ball head's not near me, but imagine this Smith thing right here. It's the top of my ball head. My leveling was like this. I captured my foreground. I captured my sky. That's kind of similar because I'm just rotating and I tilted back and forth. Well, in the time from doing my focus up here and bringing it down 2 hours later, my leveling might have been like this when it used to be like this. And just that slight difference could cause, enough of an issue with the stitching together, and Lightroom might, not even Lightroom. What's going to happen is when these overlap, and you'll see in a second here where I'm trying to paint between the two layers, they're going to have overlap in funny places where they overlap too much on one side and underlap the other, and you'll notice that. So with this stretch, this distortion that I've done on this image, if I choose this one where it's stretched to the corners and it's a full rectangle, it's forcing like the position of this point and this gully here or this saddle. They're going to have just pixel or two off from their location of what the night sky had already. And so I think to be more easy on my side and just keep my work simple, I'm going to use it just raw, not distorted, nothing distorted about it. My capture looks like this. This is what I have to work with. Hopefully every point of these out here on the caldera and every saddle will match up with each other, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. So first thing I'm going to do is this canvas is too small. I don't want to change the image size. I want to change the canvas. Remember, Aaron, what was it? Shift C? No. Oh, C. I hit I instead of C. That's what it was. So don't worry about the hotkey. You don't have to be a hotkey professional, but I use Command, Alt, and C to open this up on a Mac, and Control, Alt, and C would do that on a PC. So this right here is a height of 6593. These are roughly the same height as each other. So I just want to double this real quick. I'll give it 13,000 pixels. So now my canvas height is going to stretch, and that should give me enough room to move things around. Because what's going to happen is I am going to move I gotta select my sky. I'm gonna move my sky to the top, and that thing is just barely on the edge right there. It's touching on both sides. I'll leave it right there. So there's my sky, and I'm gonna move my foreground to it. So this foreground, I'm gonna use my long exposure foreground, and turning this sky a lower opacity on my layer, I can see the line of the rim, and I'm doing that intentionally. Down here you see opacity. In fact, let me bring up my cursor size. I should have done this already. I'm gonna bring up my cursor size so that you guys can see. Where did that go? Display, that's right. Boom. Okay, so now you can see that I'm pointing towards this rim, and over here is opacity. And this opacity I've changed to like 34%. It doesn't matter what you do, you just need it to be something that you can see. I'm selecting the word opacity and then dragging right and left, and it's changing my numbers. I'm going to go with that one. Then I'm going to grab the lower layer, and I want to overlap. And remember I mentioned the peaks and the saddles? Well, here's what I'm talking about. So here is this peak in the center, and it is literally pixel to pixel on top of each other right there. If I zoom in a crazy amount, I can start seeing every pixel, and right there it's just about perfect. But what happened everywhere else? Well, it dips down much lower in my foreground than it did on my sky, and over here this is way at a different position. And then over here, it's at a completely different position. So is this as simple as rotating from this point? That's where my challenge comes in. But I don't have to necessarily do this on my own. Let's real quickly select both these layers and ask Adobe to do it for me. Layer, and I'm going to say align, and I'm going to say auto align, auto align. Oh, are you grayed out auto align? Edit, sorry, go to edit and then auto align layers. I'm just gonna say, hey, auto align these for me. Hopefully it's going to line up my foreground ridges and saddles and peaks. Hopefully that will automatically do it. So I'm looking over here. I'm looking at Steve's message downside of using a ball head. Try a 2-axis head for panos. Yeah, you know, when you use a geared head, something that has axes that stay consistent, you can just change one, tweak it slightly, and then you are consistent everywhere else. And the ball head, you loosen it, it could go every direction, 360 degrees. Your X and Y and Z can completely change. Well, I wouldn't say Y, because Y is my ball going down and up. It's not necessarily changing height, but it's tilting, and that's a problem. That's why he mentions 2 axes. So, auto align, did it work? I don't feel like it worked. Looks like what it spent more time doing was matching up the stars in both images than actually the ground. So that wasn't a solution. There's my stars right here, and I back up, and it matches up the Milky Way stars. So thanks, Adobe, but just not quite what I needed. So I'm going to go ahead and manually move this in position again. Let's match it up with the far ridge, because that's just the one that we will look at the most. Then I'm going to back up and make sure, how bad does it look? What Adobe did with rotation has already made this right here work really well. See what it did? When it aligned for me, it rotated the 2 images in a way to match up the stars. It didn't end up matching up this section well, but it matched up this section really well. And so that's probably what I can go with. And you can see that this might work out golden like it is. So here's my foreground and background, and I'll just ignore these 2 foregrounds for now. So my sky is at the very top. It's the most important. That's not how layers work, but I'm just doing that here in this way. It's going to overlap my image down below. 1 minute detour. I closed up the iPad. 1 minute detour. Just looking at a layer when you're going to blend, you're going to put a mask on a layer. I can apply the mask to this layer where I tell it to, well, everywhere I paint black, you won't be visible. And so everywhere I'm painting black, I'm painting out this layer. So if I want to paint an A, this A shows up right here on this layer, and it's happening on my top layer and allowing my bottom layer to become visible through it. If I swap this out, let's say I take I do a new mask, let's just delete it. And I do a new mask, but I'm going to hold down Alt, and so now everything in this layer is gone. I paint white, and let's go to black and white. I paint white on it, and now everywhere I paint white, that layer comes back. You guys have heard these back and forth. Until you do it yourself, you'll be confused by these. But just know that I have a sky that's consistent, and then I'm changing different foregrounds in it. Do I want to stencil around the sky and have the back layer show up? Or do I want to put a mask on all the different layers below? Because I have 3 layers to choose from and 1 sky, I only want to make the mask once. I don't want to duplicate the mask on 3 different layers, so I'm just going to put it on the sky. That way the mask is on the sky, and it has the cutout happening to it, and then I can put anything I want underneath it and move it around. So I'm going to draw my mask on my top layer, which in this case I'm going to make it my sky. Well, I'm going to undo this mask as well. Just delete it and start over. You hit this mask button down at the bottom. See where my cursor's going? Down at the bottom, it's the big rectangle with a circle in the middle. And now it's basically applied this mask layer. If I select either one of these, I could paint black right on the image, and that's not good. I don't want to paint black color right on my image. I want to affect the black on this mask. Now, black is going to move everything out of the way. Watch, it did a bunch of zigzags. It's catching up right now. Oh, I actually painted white. Now I'm painting black. Zigzag. That's getting rid of my image. Well, where do I want to get rid of my image? I want to get rid of my image down at the bottom. So let's just go with an easy brush, and everything's 100%. And I know I want to get rid of this. Let me zoom back. I know I want to get rid of everything that's down at the horizon. And I'm just going to quickly get rid of all of it. Boom, 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 boom. Now, one thing that I've learned actually doing these live videos, there's a hotkey I was never using in any of my workflows, and it's spacebar. Hold down spacebar and it goes to the hand. Then it goes back to the tool I was using. I really love that. And then I'm using the brackets and the keyboard up here to change the size of my brush. And what I'm doing is just quickly painting the horizon back. I just want the horizon all visible, and I'll bring the stars into the cracks. You know what I mean? I want the horizon 100%. In fact, I'm going to change my brush from being soft to hard so that 100% of where the circle is going to be fully black. I don't want it gray. I don't want some of the background showing up. I want all of it, 100% of it. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see how it's happening. I am going boom, boom, boom. Being in a live stream makes it tough for these to show up live, and now these changes to affect anything. Come on. See, now it's showing up. So it's no longer putting in that shape of, see, here's some photographers. In fact, that's where Kirk is right there. That light is Kirk talking with, who was it, Kirk? Was it Andrew? No, it wasn't Andrew. Was it Andy? I think it was Andy. Then we met D'Artagnan, and we met another guy. Okay, come on, let's make this big. Wow, this is so slow to respond. It's just because I am dealing with your guys' live stream affecting what I'm seeing, that this isn't quick. And so that's why, another reason why I can't do this on a live stream, but I can create this in a separate video. And those of you who were with me in our workshop out at Nightscaper Conference this year, then went up with us and did the Island in the Sky. In fact, pretty much any of you, I'm going to be sending this to you, or sending you a video with information again, working with that specific image of the Island in the Sky image so that you guys can see it and see how to do it. So this is just brutal to try and get the live stream to show. But I'll take one section and work on it. It will not be the tree section. As you can see, that's a nightmare in itself, where you spend pixel by pixel putting in what you want and keeping what you want in the background. That's a problem for another day. So let's focus on something simple. These two ridges might be simple. What I'm going to do now, painting still on this same mask, I'm going to bring the sky back to a point where these two will blend together nicely. And this is where it's actually quite simple. If I hit over here, you look where my cursor is. Black is the top, white's the bottom. I hit the letter X and it changes which one's the top. And that top brush is the foreground color, and that foreground color is what I'm painting. So I was painting black on white, but now I want to paint back some of the white. But I don't want it to be this harsh. That's just not the way to approach this where it would look natural. So what I'm going to do is change my brush from being a hard round to a soft. I am also going to make my opacity go down at least 50, flow 50, just so that I have to make a few strokes in a row for it to actually show up. So then change the size of my brush. Now I'm painting back in the night sky. Man, my brush size does not update with the size that I'm telling it to. It's crazy. So as I paint in the night sky, you can see how it just basically takes all that foreground and makes it darker right where they connect. Because in the long exposure shot, there's fringing. There's fringing that's happening and halos that are being caused by capturing the night sky so bright, and the contrast of the dark foreground, or the dark terrain versus the night sky at high exposure. They're so starkly different. But in the night shot, they're both kind of uniformly dark. The horizon's dark, the sky is dark. And so when I'm painting over this, you can see the major complication of doing this. And this is the thing that you will spend hours resolving. And, well, okay. I admittedly took an Island in the Sky about an hour total. But you might spend hours depending on your experience. And so let's just show you quickly. Oh man, this is not quick. But let's look at what we have so far. Let's look at this, evaluate it, and call it good. So see the horizon. See what's happening here. I have this line that is now coming from the dark night shot. So now the tops of my mountains are not the detail of this that I kind of wanted. But do I really want to go through each pixel and bring back all this color? Or all this color of like the green bushes, the trees, those little points that poke off the edge there? Or do I just want to settle on a fuzzy, nondescript background? The best way to handle this is to remember that people aren't zooming into your image. People are going to see it out here. They're going to see it out at this view. And so what ends up happening on that edge of the hill there is not going to be a consequence to them. In fact, I have shown you guys this image multiple times tonight. I have shown you this image in previous videos. I talked about the flaw that's in there, and some of you have seen it and know what I'm talking about. When I was doing my mask between these two layers, and let's just look at it from here. Let's pull this up. There is a blend of a light that became two lights. Instead of seeing it as a single light, I accidentally brought in both the nighttime light. Okay, come on, please. Stop clicking and clicking and clicking. Just, let's go in more. Ooh, I'm causing this to freak out. Let's do 3-1. There we go. Now you guys can see what I'm talking about. I got to use this up here, don't I? This light in the foreground shot looks nice and solid. It's a 1 minute exposure of the foreground that makes it look bigger. This is I'm guessing that the way that these overlap, this one's coming from the sky shot and this one's coming from the long exposure. Just more time, made it bigger, made it kind of blur out on the sides. And then the less time, the 8 seconds, made it more of a dot, a fine dot. But this is the same light, and I need to fix the mask so it only shows the light once instead of seeing it twice. But as we go around the edges of all of this stuff, you can see, let's show you on these mountains. So as I painted the night sky in and then kept the foreground up here, I got that gray fringing that you're seeing in Photoshop right here, where we have a lit foreground and a dark foreground. And so it's got this black stripe along the outline of the shape of the mountain. I had that on this. And so in the end, what it came down to was if I painted the night sky view of this mountain range all the way down to here, look, I have two lights here too. I wonder if that's an error in my blend. When I brought this down here, then this whole silhouette of a mountain existed for context, but the detail on it was gone a little bit. And in this case, it's so far back that it didn't really hurt the image. In Crater Lake, that's going to hurt more, as the crater, the caldera, the rim of this crater, is a feature. It's the whole purpose of doing the blend. The whole purpose that this blend looks like this. So as you guys see this image right now, before it's all been fine-tuned and decisions made and blends painted over, when I don't have the lag of a live stream going on, you'll see how this turns out. You'll see what happens. I have a glow over here of city lights. I have a glow over here of city lights. I have little horizon lights right there that I'm going to want to keep, and I have to decide which pixel to keep and protect and which pixel to blend over. Do I keep the pixel version from the nighttime dark shot or the pixel of the lighter long exposure shot? And at what point do these mesh together and overlap enough that it looks natural? And so in this scenario of this terrain where it's nice and flat and I only had these bushes to worry about, it worked great. In fact, look at the car. You can see the fadedness of tree branches and the fringing and halos that are still present on this image. But zoomed out, no one knew, no one saw it. I fixed this one as best I could because it was so prominent, it was so obvious, even though this looks fuzzy all zoomed in right there, but the edge looked bad because it's got such a highlight of light behind it from Moab. So areas you have to make look good, and other areas you can get away with just smudging over it, just smudge over it. So if you were to look at the steps of doing this, you open up your layers in Photoshop, and then you choose one as your layer that you're applying the mask to, knowing that it's going to be the consistent layer, and everything underneath you can swap out and change out whatever you'd like to be underneath there. Wherever you cut your stencil, your mask, it's going to show the image of white, and then everywhere it's black, it's not showing that layer, that image, and then you can see what's below it. So this is my mask currently of the night sky image. If I were to remove this mask, you would see the full shape of this image, but now with this mask applied, it's only showing this view. And then I put underneath it what I'd like, because maybe I want this layer underneath it, and I want to put these mountains like that. You can see how the peak matches up here, the tree matches up there. I can play around with the layer underneath and make that work. You apply the mask with this rectangle and circle, and then you just play around. Now, working with this brush, it's one option. In fact, you can do an option that you should try at home, working with a select and layer mask tool. So you can go and do a select and mask, and then you can select and mask a layer out, but that's something that's incredibly hard for me to do on a live. So right here, selecting it right there, I can go and paint this section and tell it that this is an area, and it'll adjust the mask for me on the edges. And this can be perfect. This could be the perfect way of blending it. The only problem is that it's so final. It's this hand, and if I should have a glove, I'll use this. So here's a hand that's completely blue and a hand that's completely yellow, and everything is exactly kept. All those pixels of blue and the pixels of yellowish white hand, they're kept. There's no blend of blue over the yellow and blend of yellow over the blue to kind of get them to gradually go into each other. They're just a stark difference, contrast, boom, boom. So when you're selecting and masking, you just got to play around with it and make that contrast between them both blend together gradually like a gradient, instead of being just a stark, here's the sky, here's the foreground, boom. It doesn't look natural that way. It won't look natural in the blue hour for sure, and it won't look good if I used this one. And so you just need to play around with it and get them to blend together and be natural. And it's a process. It's a process. So Ryan Luna has a point I'm going to add on here, just to add his message. Just darken the Terra Nova layer a bit more and lighten the edge of the sky layer a little, Ron. And so he's talking about trying to get them to blend more together. You know, you can take the entire layer and bring it down a bit and bring this dark layer up a bit. And then when they blend together, it's not trying to take a black to a brown. It's taking a darker brown to a lighter brown, kind of both the same texture and color. So that's one really great way, Ryan, to do it. And you play around with it. Absolutely. It's a mess back and forth, but in the end, you can become very happy with it. Let me just go ahead and save this. You know, I clicked Control S on the stream. I hope I haven't messed something up. It looks funky on the chat box, but I'll just go back to the main ticker. Hopefully the stream itself, I did a hotkey for Photoshop over here on my streaming software, so I'm afraid of anything that it might have happened to. So it looks like everything's solid. Looks like everything's good right there. If I go to IMAX screen, I was just trying to save this guy out, and it looks like it's 95% saved. And looking at Lightroom, this right here is my TIFF, and I can open this up in Photoshop once this is over, just to show you quickly how the mask turned out. And my point of showing it to you is going to be seeing with your own eyes how, okay, that doesn't look impossible to do. It isn't impossible for me to accomplish that. What it ends up looking like is all black, all white, and the blend between it is, you know, a gradient, and here some harder blacks and softer whites, and it all kind of comes together to make what in the end looks all right. Looks all right. Like right here, I feel like it has the worst of it, where the lighter foreground shows up higher up on that. But I felt like when I looked at the options painting back and forth, this looked better than the alternative. And I think it was because of how much of the detail here I wanted, but the contrast between it and that was too great. And so, oh, look right there. See, there's the flaw. There is a duplicate rock right there. So those are fixes that I have to still make to make this image just right. But even with that complete ghost of a rock that's showing up right there, oh man, what have I done? I selected reference photo. I don't want you to do a reference photo right now. Sorry, Lightroom. Let's see how Photoshop's doing. 98%. This might not finish before the end of our video. So let me just end by saying that when you guys, go back to the camera chat. Oh yeah, totally messed up. I forgot. I did something and screwed that up. So, it couldn't save it because it's too big of a file, because I have those other layers in there. So we'll just leave it at that in the background. So guys, when you're working with your double layers, if you're working in a single image versus a panorama, it all works the same. If you have a blend for the sky, or you have a exposure for the sky and exposure for the ground, and you need to blend them together, you can take advantage of this method using Photoshop. Using Photoshop, you absolutely have to do, but you could do so many different things that you can use. You use luminosity masks to blend them together. You can use tools like Ryan's talking about, where you just change the texture of change the color and brightness of each layer so they look better when you overlap them, and then you can cut it more easily. You can also go through it with a select and mask tool and make those really obvious masks between both of them, and then just tweak them and blend them together a little bit better. Just play around with it. It's a matter of playing around with the mask, but it's worth it in the end, as you can see with Island of the Sky, and I can't wait to see the final version of it with Crater Lake. So I'm going tomorrow on another workshop. It's our last Escalante workshop here in this year. I'll be hanging out with some awesome guys down there for 4 days, and then we are not doing a Milky Way workshop again until August. And August has our final Milky Way workshop of the year, Oregon Coast. If you'd like to do a Milky Way out there at Bandon, possibly Thor's Well, but most likely Bandon, Secret Beach, and maybe even Cape Kiwanda. These 4 areas are areas that we're looking at weather and going out to. If you want to come for 2 nights or all 4 nights, look it up on our website. Go to photogadventures.com/workshops. Or if you can't make 2019 and you've been wondering if 2020 is coming out soon, 2020 workshops, I have the dates, I have the prices, I have everything set up except for the part where you can click a button and buy. That's a process in itself, and it's what I've been working on ever since I came back from Italy. But I do want to share with you quickly this view of the page that will be our workshop page for 2020. This video is being replaced by a new video for Milky Way Workshops 2020, and here are the dates and times to make note of. And as you can see, we already are only down to 2 spots left on Escalante. So I will be going to Escalante once next year. I'll be going to Southern Utah Workshop, where I go to Natural Bridges and Goblin Valley, only once next year. With the May Nightscaper Conference right there on the 20th and 22nd, I have one-nighter. So if you're out at the Kanab Conference, the Nightscaper Conference 2020, you can join me on May 20th or May 22nd. I'm going to the North Rim of the Grand Canyon on the 20th. And on the 22nd, I'm going to the Toadstool Hoodoos. Then, May 23rd, right after the conference, we're going into that Escalante workshop, which is why I've only got 2 spots left already. And those alumni that are coming have taken the spots, and those who have emailed me directly have asked for it, and I've hooked them up with it. So the 23rd through 27th is that time for Escalante. If you always want to get out to Escalante, there's your chance. And then I'm going to have, for those of you local Utah guys and girls who want to do Milky Way out at the Salt Flats, I am hoping, hope beyond hope, this year did not work out. I went out there, it was still too flooded. We couldn't drive out. We couldn't quite get this image again with the panorama and everything before. It was too high in the sky. But next year on June 18th and June 19th, there'll be a one-night Milky Way workshop. You can come either night, whatever works for you, that Thursday night or that Friday night, and do a Milky Way with me and a group of 8 people. Then we have the Crater Lake and Oregon Coast Milky Way workshop only once, and it's going to be June 22nd through 26th. The Southern Utah Milky Way workshops July 20th through 24th. The 24th is a holiday, so we get out of there on the 24th. We're done by the 24th. And so in order to get that in, to actually fit that into the schedule, that was the only time I can do it. It's very hot, but luckily we go out at night. So we're safe. Faroe Islands, we will repeat it. Those of you, Kathy and Who else said they were coming? Oh yeah, it's Rhonda. I kept wanting to say Debbie, kept wanting to say, but it's Rhonda. Rhonda Pierce and Kathy are joining me out in the Faroe Islands workshop, and we are going to be there this September. So for next year's September, you can join us. You see the price did go up. It's been an expensive workshop, and so those of us joining me this year have gotten a nice deal. Next year, it's going to go up a little bit. Then I have these that, well, let's not talk about those yet, but Southern Hemisphere right here, baby, right there. So hopefully you guys want to join me in 2020, and if you're not want to join me in 2020, join me in 2021. I will be back. So I'm stoked to have you guys join me on another Milky Way Wednesday. Thanks to those of you who could stay out for the entire video, and then look for the highlight reels coming up on the YouTube channel coming up. Oh man, after I get back from this workshop, I'll make that edit. But thank you guys. Have a good night. I'm Aaron King with Photog Adventures, and if there's nothing else that you take from this, just take this. Get out there with your own camera and go and capture a Milky Way. Go and do it right now. If you think you need better gear, forget about it. Just go and capture a Milky Way. Go see what it looks like with your current gear, then make some decisions on what gear you might need. So have a good night. See ya. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys, in the live video, and I will see you next Wednesday. All right. Bye, guys. Just a Utah one. I forgot to turn the mic off. But yep, just a Utah one.